If you're feeling stuck and you feel you have that large mountain to climb when building a real estate portfolio, pay attention to this upcoming episode. So without any further delay, let's get after it. Let's go. Hey everybody, welcome back. Russell Westcott here. So hope you're having yourself a wonderful day. And I hope you're having yourself one of those days that everything is just falling into place. You know, all the offers are being accepted. All the financing is being approved. All the diligence is proving to be just green lights from the get-go. But we all know in real estate investing, that just isn't the case. Most time within your real estate, you're just trying to get through the day and keep your mental sanity about you. So in this upcoming episode, I had a chance to sit down with a good friend of mine. Now, this is a 4-part interview. This was taken well before COVID lockdowns happened. This is now just being released to the public. This was in the private vault for a couple years now, and I've just decided to release it to my YouTube channel. So in this episode, you're going to be introduced to Niran Kulathungam. Niran has an incredible story. As a matter of fact, he has multiple incredible stories. Incredible stories about immigrating to Canada without knowing anybody. And if that wasn't enough, he had a brain injury that he had to learn how to function as a human being all over again. So if you're having a bad day and you're having your offers get denied and your diligence isn't just coming through and your financing got turned down and your offer didn't get accepted, if you're having a bad day, sometimes just a little perspective is all you need to turn your day around. This is a video you will come back to often. It is an inspiring, encouraging tale of perseverance, grit, determination, doing whatever it takes to succeed in this game of real estate. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you leave a comment below, and without any further delay, let's get after it. Okay, everybody. So welcome back. We are doing another interview of the Standing on the Shoulders of Giants interview here. And first and foremost, before I get into my formal introduction, I wanted to welcome Niran Kulathungam, right? So welcome here, Niran. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Awesome to be here.
How long has it been? It's been quite a while since in person. How long has it been?
In person? 2 years?
2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've talked.
We've talked a couple times on the phone.
Yeah, we just reconnected again.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so guys, as you know, what we do in these interviews is I just people that I know that have touched my life in many different respects. I always want to I want to get some of the story, and I want to go deep and I want to go back into the story. And so Niran and I were talking about getting together, and we were talking about, okay, I'm going to be in Toronto this time. You got time? And so I've ghetto arranged my hotel room. So we're in my hotel room, so let's not have anyone talk. Let's not have anyone talk here. Niran's up in my room. And I just wanted to get this conversation on video here and just have just a wonderful dialogue, because there's an incredible story here. And now the best way I can introduce you is with a story as a starting point. So first and foremost, my wife says hi. Karine says hi.
Yes, hi back to Karine.
And it's actually a good segue into the story. So here's the story. This just will show the essence and the heart of this man. I was delivering a workshop with Barry Maguire, and this was probably about 5 years ago now. And I get sick once every 5 years, maybe. Okay. And so I'm sitting there, and I was deathly ill. My wife and Karine was with me too, and I was deathly ill. I couldn't even get out of bed. I was in the hotel room, sick as a dog. And Karine in a city, didn't know anybody, had no one there, and Niran offered to help my wife. You'd never met Karine, had you?
No,
never
I had
met
not.
her,
No,
right?
I'd never met
and
her.
you had offered to drive her to the hospital, to a drugstore, to get her some
I remember this.
medication.
Yes.
Do you need my car? What do you need? What do you need to help you support Russell because he's sick, right? And that touched me. For somebody to go out of their way to that extent to offer that much support and help for somebody you didn't even know. You knew me, but you had never met my wife. Right?
That's right.
So that just is the best way I can describe who you are as a person. Is really just that kind of depth of helping and giving and of service of who you are. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Russell, because I honestly didn't. It's kind of normal for me.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's But that means a lot that you remembered that.
It's
I
funny.
had forgotten it.
It's funny how sometimes the things that we think that are just the normal course of living our life, it touches other people. You just never know how you touch another person's life.
That's right.
Ever,
yes.
Ever. All right. So now that we've got all the good feely stuff out of the way here, we will talk about some real estate because you guys, this story that Niran is going to dive into, and we're going to go really deep into it, is incredible. But before we get into how you got into real estate story, I don't know a lot of the way back story. Like little Niran.
Yes.
Like why don't you give everybody some context of where you're from and what some of your upbringing was and what led you up to, let's go pre-accident. I don't mean to give it away, but the before accident.
Sure. Okay. So I was born in Sri Lanka.
Right.
At the age of around 7 or 8. I was 7 years old. We all came to Canada for a period of 5 years.
Right.
Until I was 12 years old. My dad was doing his PhD at McMaster at that time in Hamilton. We went back to Sri Lanka, and then all my teenage years was in Sri Lanka until I was about almost 18.
Good.
Then we came back to Canada.
What was it like in
Sri Lanka?
Yeah, what was that like?
It was bittersweet.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful country.
Yep.
Love the country and the people, but the time period that we were in, the second time we were there, a lot of civil unrest, rioting. We could spend a long time on that story, but in a nutshell, what took place was people were out to kill us.
Yeah.
Death threats on the family. We had to hide for about 2 weeks. We actually stayed in a hospital that our church there ran in the middle of nowhere. We lived in a city called Kandy. And Kandy was, a city kind of like the size of Hamilton kind of a thing.
Okay.
And then when we went to, during the rioting, we ended up staying at a place called Fridsrow, in a place called Bokavala. It's a big, long word, but it's a tiny village in the middle of surrounded by jungles. And there was a hospital there that the church ran. And even there were death threats on us and mobs came to kill us. They ransacked our house. And I remember at that time, if my memory serves me correctly, my dad got a set of tickets sent to him by one of the professors from McMaster University, and also for another set from our church that we went to in Hamilton. Okay. And their instruction was, get on the plane, to my dad, Lyman. He said, Lyman, get on the plane, come to Canada, we'll look after you. Yeah. And I still remember my dad calling us together and saying, if we leave now, we are leaving when our country needs us the most. We are not going. And we stayed. Right. And they used to smuggle my parents into refugee camps to do counseling and then smuggle them out. So your parents would do the counseling, not be counseling. Not be counseling. They would do the counseling and then they would be smuggled out. Yeah. And so it's a whole story. I don't know how much in depth you want to go into that.
Well, but here's the thing is I believe in a lot of these things shape who we are as people. Oh, absolutely. And we'll go as deep as we need to go. Like this is some of your time. So if this is an opportunity for you to maybe on a camera and something to get some of this story out that maybe has never been told. First and foremost, I'm fascinated. I'm going to learn this, right? Because as you guys all know, I'm a firm believer in it's not just the real estate, it's who you become in the process of owning real estate that makes the difference, right? So really, how do you think that shaped you as a young child of having to fear for your life, if you will, growing up?
It caused a couple different things for me. One is that it made me quite resilient. It gave me, I think I'm a nice guy. Yeah. But when push comes to shove, and if you put me in a corner, I'm going to come out swinging kind of a thing. And so what that did is it shaped that, when I saw all that happen around me, it creates in you this tenacity to say, bring it. Yeah. Kind of a thing.
Well, if you think about it, it could have went a different direction. It could have went that you could have been a victim and you could have been, angry at everything, and you could have been paranoid and fearful and all that kind of stuff. Could have went that completely direction.
It could have gone that direction. It didn't.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I think it didn't is because we went. There were two races, and there are fringe groups within each race that were fighting each other.
Yep.
But in our church that we went to, the two races were in harmony. In fact, we were protected by the other race. And then certain events happened. For example, well, I'll tell you one short story.
Yeah, please.
We were in this church orphanage and hospital that I spoke about earlier. And that was mainly the hospital staff, doctors, about 120 orphans, because there was an orphanage there, and the staff there, and the pastoral staff, and my parents, and the director of the hospital.
Yes.
And certain mobs in that area, people had found out that some Tamil people were being protected here, and so this gang of men had decided they were going to come and burn the place down.
Yeah.
So the small nearby village had only 2 police officers. The 2 cops stopped by, and they say to our leadership, I was 16 years old at this time. They say to the leadership there, there's nothing we can do to stop this from happening. We can't protect you. This is the time. Your faith and your faith in Christ has to help you. And they left.
Jeez. The hand of God is the only thing that's going to protect you.
Yes, pretty much. And now keep in mind, this was a time in the country where if you were the wrong person at the wrong time, you would get clubbed to death, or you would get set on fire by they would pour gasoline on you and set you on fire. My uncle's dad, for example, got beat to death. He was in a hospital after a heart attack, and when he found out about the rioting, the hospital staff had all fled. He unplugged himself from the machines and the IV, caught a cab. The cab wouldn't let him out any further. It would take him only so far. He started running, ran into a Hindu temple for protection. They came in and beat him to death. So that's what's going on in the country.
Wow. Holy moly.
So when we had this happen, we mainly Christian. We were a small group of Christians within the whole thing, and within our church, what we decided we would do is we would pray for peace, and we would fast and pray. We would go without food for 3 days, and we would fast and pray. Now, when you're 16, not eating for an hour is a big ordeal.
Exactly.
When you know you're going to die, protocol goes flying out the window.
Yeah.
And everybody just buckles down and does whatever needs to be done.
Yeah, it's holy moly. That's I didn't even know where to go. I did not know all this backstory of this, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And quite honestly, compared to what the whole journey into real estate is going to talk about, that's actually kind of a walk in the park compared to what you had to do as growing up.
Yes.
Okay, but let's talk further about that. So what was the impetus that brought your dad to Canada to do his studies? And then the next question is, how did you feel as an immigrant coming into Hamilton and a complete culture shock and different things like that? So two lines there for you.
So let me wrap that story up, because
please,
it'll actually help me answer the question that you're asking.
Thank you.
My dad already had his PhD at that time, so we were back. I was in my teenage years.
Yeah.
He was a prof at the university there.
Yeah.
And when that mob came to attack us, they did not step into our land. And that same night, we had some incredible events happen. I won't go into it today because I don't know how deep you want to go there.
Hey, let's go.
Okay.
No, please do.
So what took place on that night that this mob was arriving is we were all praying, and in the Pentecostal Christian tradition, there's this idea of moments where God breaks into people's lives and gives a special message. And on that night, there was a message like this. And the message was, my children, why are you so scared? 1,000 will fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand. It will not come near you. That night, the mob came. They did not step onto the land. The next day, the 2 cops came back to see what was left of us.
Right.
They parked their Jeep. It was a army type Jeep in the front of the gates of the thing and said, this is the safest place in the country for us to be in. And they stayed there. We turned out that some of these guys who had come 6 months later, a couple of them converted to Christianity and made this amazing statement. They said, we formed 2 mobs. One group was coming from one side, the other was coming from the other side. We could not cross on one side because there was a forest fire. And the other side, we stepped into the land and we felt fear and we could not go there. And so it was just, so when those kinds of things happen in the midst of huge uncertainty, it creates for you, for me, what it did for me is it created this feeling that no matter what happened, no matter how bad things got, that God and I together could do this. And so even in real estate and everything in life, when stuff goes wrong, it's like, all right, what are we going to do now? And so it created in me this sense of calling to a higher purpose, and to see people not as they are, but as who they are intended to be.
Wow. Well, it hit the nail on the head is how much context does that put into? So guys, if you're sitting there and you maybe got rejected by a bank and the bank didn't give you financing or something like seriously, put it into context.
Yes.
Right. It truly is. Holy moly. Well, what a wonderful story. So what did lead you to come to Canada?
So
right?
a while later, about a year, things had settled down in the country. My dad was back at university and he came to us and he said, you know what? I believe our time has come. We are going as missionaries to Canada. Normally the West sends missionaries to the East. This was flipped around the other way.
Right.
And we came to Canada as landed immigrants. I think we were the only family after something like 20 years to come into Canada without sponsorship of a blood relative, based solely on my dad's academic credentials from the country of Sri Lanka. And even to get here was very difficult because we couldn't even... they did not want us to leave. Right. And so because of that, we couldn't even get to see the Canadian ambassador. So special instructions had to be sent from Canada to the Indian consulate to instruct the Sri Lankan powers that they have to allow us to see the Canadian ambassador. And stuff like that. And, there was always roadblock after roadblock. Both my dad and I were diagnosed in the process with holes in our heart. Completely bogus. Because it slows down the process of application.
Oh, who did that? Like you had to have a physical.
You had to have a physical.
And they put on there that you had
both
heart
my
problems.
dad and I have a hole in the heart.
Oh, jeez.
And that means everything comes to a stop. Now we get into a waiting list to see a heart specialist. He clears us. So you only have 1 year in which the process has to be completed. Otherwise, you end up at the start of the line again.
Wow.
So that whole thing. And so we had to walk through all that. And there's tons of stories there I could talk about. But we ended up immigrating to Canada. And I remember when we left, it was in the middle of the night. Nobody knew we were leaving. Nobody could know to protect our own families. We left, and I remember my aunt's brother, he drove us in a Jeep that looked like an army Jeep early in the morning, like 3 a.m, I think, to the airport, dropped us off, and we got on the plane. I still remember sitting on the plane, Russell, and watching my parents grow younger.
Just some of the weight, probably just...
The weight. As the higher that plane, until the plane took off, they looked like they had aged. And then as the plane took off, I still remember because we weren't sitting together.
Yeah.
My brother and I were ahead on the right side and they were back a little bit to the left.
Yeah.
I remember kept looking over at them, and I remember seeing as the plane took off and it got higher and higher, they got younger.
Wow. And that just, I'm a firm believer in how much our environment shapes who we are as people too. Well, two things is, sound like the environment you grew up absolutely shaped the man who you are today.
Absolutely.
And it's probably given you more gratitude than ever of what you've now come towards. Yes. And just, wow, that what a story about how you can actually physically see your parents getting younger as they left that situation.
Yes.
Right.
And when we came to Canada, we had nothing.
Yeah.
We had a couple $100, couple suitcases.
Did you have a place to live? Didn't
have anything.
You didn't even have shelter, food, nothing.
We landed here, and the Bethel Gospel Tabernacle was the church in Hamilton, and they played a key role in us entering Canada.
What time of year did you land?
I can't remember.
I'm just trying to think if it was winter compared to leaving Sri Lanka to come to.
It wasn't winter.
Okay, good.
It wasn't winter. I think it was in the fall.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. Because the church we went to, Bethel, in Hamilton Mountain, Ken Charles was one of the board members. He picked us up, and we stayed at his house for a few days. Yeah. And that Sunday we went to church, and my dad kept looking at the paper and saying, "Hey, we could rent this place here," and it was way down on Barton Street, and rough area of Hamilton. Yeah. And Uncle Ken, or I call him Uncle Ken, he would say, "No, Lyman, you don't want to live there." And that Sunday we went to church. Mm-hmm. And after church, the board of the church took us out for lunch. Went to lunch. And then when we got out, we thought we were going back to Ken's house. Yep. Instead, they said, we just have one stop to make. So all these cars went, and we ended up on a street called Shady Side Drive on Hamilton Mountain, townhouse complex. Yeah. We get out, and my and Pastor David Shepherd, he takes a set of keys, and he turns around to us, and he gives the keys to my dad, and he says, "Lyman, that's your house. The rent's been paid. The fridge is full."
Wow.
We walked into that townhouse, and even my room had a motorcycle poster in it.
Oh, wow.
It had a chest of drawers, it had a bed, everything was looked after.
Wow.
And that allowed us to get our feet under, and gave us time to find employment. Yeah.
Right? Wow. How much did you guys feel, and I'm not saying this is bad in one situation, good in another, but how, almost felt like the country just wrapped their arms around you and said, welcome, come to Canada, and welcome to Canada, and here's your entire community and church, and as opposed to trying to club you to death, right? Yes. No judgment against what you left, but I imagine it would have probably brought a tear to your eye of just feeling the warmth and support of what you had.
The same warmth and support I'd felt in Sri Lanka within my church community.
Right. Okay.
So it was, although the environment was hostile, the community was very similar.
Right. Okay.
That felt the same to me.
Yeah.
However, here, the community, the environment was so much nicer. Russell, I remember walking into that house, and I hope I can tell the story without crying. Okay. How's that? Okay. We're all standing at the front, in the foyer. And David Shepherd turns around and says to my dad, he says, he says a prayer, a blessing for us. Yeah. Then my dad prays. And I was just 18, I think, 17 going on 18. Yep. My dad prays, and he says, "Father, you have given us this, and you've taken away. Whatever happens, even if what we have now is taken away from us, I will still serve you." And for a 17-year-old boy who was full of, wanting to fight something.
Yeah, a little bit of anger and rage.
Yes. Yeah. That broke me. My dad's prayer that time, because the humility that he had. And so, Russell, I think that too, you talk about environment. I notice I don't drink coffee at Tim Hortons that much. But when roll up the rim is on, I stop by Tim Hortons a little bit more.
Right.
And we're all winners until the rim goes up.
Yeah.
And it says play. But, when you buy a lottery ticket, even if you bought it, everybody thinks they're a winner until you scratch. But to live in Canada is to have already won by rolling up the rim.
Wow.
To live in Canada, the environment is such that you've already won the lottery ticket.
Yeah.
What you can accomplish in this country is not a result of environment. It is a result of your capability to just reach out and take what's yours,
right?
What's within grasp.
Wow. Well, and then you said something you touched on too, and what I'm going to do here too is I'm going to reset the cameras here very soon. So we're just going to take a real quick short break, and we're going to come back. But one of the things you said, and we're going to touch on next, is you talked about community.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that I've been very, very conscious and mindful of building this community of real estate investors. Is it is about the community. It's about the village all supporting each other, because this journey can be hard, and it's nowhere as difficult being a real estate investor as what you just described in your upbringing from Sri Lanka. But it can be hard in its own way. It's mentally challenging. It's lonely. There's lots of frustrations and things like that. And that's why we have this community of where we all can come together and reach out and need some help and support and all those wonderful things. So guys, I'm going to just do a real quick reset of the cameras, and we're going to be back right after this with Niran. So welcome back, everybody. I'm back here with Niran. So you know what? I almost consider you like Madonna. It's just call you by one name, right?
Yes, right.
But I have to practice. It's Kulathungam. Thungam.
Yes, you got to sound a little bit tribal.
I got to come more from Godiva.
Yes.
Thungam. Kulathungam.
Well, the funny thing is that if you say the name correctly, it means, I believe, beauty of the race.
Okay.
But if you say it incorrectly, it means all kinds of naughty things. So,
I don't want to get it incorrect. Kulathungam. I got that right. We almost have to do like a little bit of a tribal dance or something there too. Right. So if you guys saw the first part, Niran and I have just went deep into his upbringing and backstory, and I did not know all that. I knew a little bit of it, and I knew who you are in the context of being a real estate investor, but I didn't know who you were in context as the man sitting in front of me. And thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. And quite frankly, I think there's so much more. I think there's a few more layers of onion to go underneath that as well. But I do want to talk about, because I think this will shape our conversation around real estate, is coming into Hamilton.
Yes.
And as an immigrant person, were you accepted in the school? Was there, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but was there any bullying? Like, how did that happen while you were, when you were first here?
It's funny. The first time I was in Sri Lanka, from the time I was 5 to or 7 to 12, and I went back to Sri Lanka, I had to fit into the Sri Lankan community there. And I found that challenging.
Oh, so you found it more challenging to go back?
Not more, but it was challenging.
Okay.
And then when I came to Canada, I had the same challenge as well. And I think the mistake that sometimes we make is that when immigrants come to this country and there's a challenge, we break it down into racial lines.
Right.
And it's not. It's more tribal lines. It's social groups.
Right.
So when I came to Canada the second time, I was told by my buddies at the school I went to a private school in Sri Lanka, at Trinity College. And when I came back, some of my friends told me, they said, "No, Niran, you go to Canada, there's going to be gangs, you're going to get beat up."
Okay.
Because their idea of Canada was what they had seen on the movies.
Right.
Right? So I remember one friend of mine saying, "Listen, you're going to get beat up. Just remember to break one guy's arm, and the next time they'll think twice about coming after you."
Okay.
So the first day I go to school, and
good advice.
I am nervous as anything, right? And I walk in, and I'm walking down the hallway, and I'd never been in a school like it was a high school, and lockers along the side, and people all seem to know which locker to go to and what to get out. And I'm walking down, and a friend of mine's sister was there, and she turns around and she goes, "Niran, Oh, I've been looking for you. I knew you were coming to the school. Come on, let me take you and show you everything.
Nice.
And next thing I knew, I was just one of the boys.
Right.
And
you didn't have to break anyone's arm?
I didn't have to break anybody's arm, nothing.
Yeah.
So none of that.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing some more high school here.
Yep.
They made me retake grade 12 here.
Okay.
Even though what I did in first and second year university is what I'd done in high school in Sri Lanka.
Okay.
Right. So I did that. And then my dad was a prof at McMaster University. Mm-hmm. Then he decided that he was going to go full time with a Bible college in Peterborough.
Yep.
So we moved to Peterborough.
Yep.
And we moved there.
Yep.
We were renting a house at the end of my first year of university. We didn't have enough money to buy our own home. Mm-hmm. So I decided I was going to go tree planting.
I did too. Best university job.
Oh, best university job, right?
You learn having all that time to think.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's hard work. 10 cents a tree, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I worked for 3.5 months planting trees, came back with more money than I knew what to do with.
Yeah.
Turned around to my dad and I said, here's 5,000 or something. I can't remember the exact number around there.
Yeah.
Gave him some cash and he had cash and my brother, and we pooled all our money. And we bought our first property.
Nice.
In Peterborough.
Well, so you essentially did almost like a joint venture at that time.
Like a joint venture, yeah.
If you really think
exactly.
About it. Yeah.
And we lived there. I did my undergraduate degree in chemistry biology.
Yeah.
Worked as a chemist for a lab operating out of Trent University.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then landed a job with Coca-Cola Foods in their quality control.
Okay.
They actually offered me a full paid scholarship to do my master's in science in food processing.
Okay.
And I thought, food processing is so boring. Forget that. And I turned that down. I went to Bible college for 1 year and did what they did, all the theology they do in 4 years. Yep. I did it in 1 year.
Right.
Just did a crash program. And then from there, I went to McMaster University and did my master's in divinity, in theology. Yeah. And after that, I church planted. I'm an ordained minister. Yeah. I church planted with, me and a buddy of mine started a church for the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. Two of us.
So church planting would be the best way. You founded a church, or you set up a new church in a different area? Is that kind of
pretty much? Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
We went to an area where
it's exactly as it sounds. You planted a church in a different area.
It's known as an area where churches die. Yeah. We went there, two of us, and we started meeting in somebody's house. Mm-hmm. We grew that little thing to about 250 people. Yeah. Bought a building, and did that. I had a whole pile of OSAP loans that were following me around, and I was approaching a point of burnout. Mm-hmm. So I quit from there, and then
OSAP is student loans.
From my master's degree and my undergraduate degree, and so I ended up, in meeting these people. A friend of mine now, David Snell Building Services, and he had a renovating company, and he said, "I'll give you a job. Why don't you sell windows for me?" I said, I know nothing about windows. He said, drive around in my truck for 2 weeks. You'll learn everything you need to know. Okay. So I drove around with him for 2 weeks, started selling windows, became literally the VP of the company, so to speak.
So you really learned a very valuable skill.
Yes.
Like how to sell. Right?
How to sell.
Is a good skill set. Yeah.
And I'd done a lot of sales before too. I'd worked as an advertising rep.
I'll tell you, just selling for your life and just the resiliency of that, and putting a church into a place that churches go to die. You have to do a lot of, potentially you have to do some selling there.
Yes,
right?
That's right. Yeah.
Nice.
And so I ended up making a lot of money there to pay off my debts, and we bought our first home.
Right.
And then I became a professor an adjunct faculty member at Master's College and Seminary. Okay. I ended up becoming the associate dean for one of their departments. Then I ended up becoming the dean for their department. And it was at that time that I had my motorcycle accident.
Yes. Okay. Well, so before we do get to that point, because that was another one of those pivotal moments here. So you weren't really into real estate yet up to this time. You'd the family house. You'd bought your own first married.
Married. Yes.
Married at the time.
We were married. Yes.
Canadian?
I got married in 1996.
Yeah, from a lady from Canada?
From Canada.
Yeah.
Gloria, yes.
Children at that time yet?
No. At the time of marriage, no.
No. Do you have children now?
I do. I got 2 boys.
2 boys. How old are they now?
13 and 10.
Oh, man.
Crazy guys.
So when we would have first met, there would have been, the 10-year-old probably wasn't even in the picture yet, was it?
No, Russell, the first time I heard you on stage, it was right after my accident, shortly after. He would have been about just under a year. Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. Okay, so wow, what an incredible backstory. So that's just the backstory.
Yes.
Right. So talk to me about this motorcycle accident, because that's one of an absolute pivotal moment that happened in your life for multiple different reasons and could have went different directions there. So share that story with us, please.
At that point in time, I was the dean of the school.
Yep.
Or one of the
high
departments.
academic. You had high esteem. You were regarded. You're big man on campus, right?
A big man on campus. There were 4 of us.
Yeah.
There, each department. So I looked after what's called intercultural.
Yeah.
So I went for Master's Intercultural Bible College.
Yeah.
And we provided all the undergraduate degrees within contextualized for different cultures. Yeah. So we were in 7 or 8 different cultures.
Yeah.
It was just not just language translation. It was culturally contextualized.
Okay.
And what took place was that at that time, I felt like I had landed.
Right. You arrived. Right?
I arrived. I was in the center of my calling, the will of God for my life, the center of where I was meant to be.
Yeah, you were in flow. This is what you were meant to do, and you're probably just, you were just ramping up.
I was ramping up.
Yeah.
And when I was hired as the dean, I was the only candidate without a PhD.
Wow.
And I was told they would give me the job, but they would give me 1 year to get my feet under me. And after that, I had to enroll in my doctoral program.
Wow. So you were the dean. At what age was that at?
40.
Okay. So fairly young for that type of position.
Yes, I was the youngest on the campus, I think.
Yeah.
It was not just about the teaching part.
Yep.
I could impact future leadership.
Nice.
And
so a leader of leaders.
That's where I felt I was in my right space.
Yeah.
And I was on my way to a board meeting or a lead team meeting, which was the president, vice president, and the 4 deans. And I would normally ride my motorcycle in.
Yep.
And then I'd change into a suit that I would have in the office, and off would go. So I was sitting about 3 blocks from my house, a red light on my Kawasaki 900cc Ninja.
Oh, nice.
Beautiful motorcycle.
Pardon the term, crotch rocket.
Yes. Absolutely. Goes fast.
Yeah.
Red light, I'd come to a stop, and I was wearing full, upper body was full racing gear.
Yep.
So people could see me coming. I was Kevlar body armor and red and white. And, I remember stopping at the stop sign, the stoplight.
Where was this at?
This was on Kennedy Road and Glidden in the city of Brampton.
Okay.
And I stopped. I remember seeing a police car across from me, waiting as well. Then having this thought, why is my bike still moving? And trying to kind of reach for the front brake, and I'm reach for the clutch, and that is all I remember. A lady came up behind me. According to her, the sun was in her eyes. She did not see any lights. She didn't see me stopped. She hit me doing over 60 kilometers an hour.
Oh, and you were stopped.
I was stopped.
Yeah.
I went straight up in the air, and she hit me so hard that my motorcycle, instead of being straight, bent. The frame literally bent, right? I went up in the air. At least this is what I figured out after. Yeah. I went up in the air. My head broke her windshield. And when she stopped, I got thrown back out.
Oh, because then the car would have stopped, and then you would have got thrown back out. Right?
Yes.
Wow.
I don't remember anything about the accident. I vaguely remember somebody shining a flashlight or something in my eye, and someone saying, "Sir, you've been in a motorcycle accident." I also remember seeing at one point the sides get really dark, and then everything just shutting off.
Yeah.
I woke up in a hospital. I remember people were asking me, "Do you know what date it is?" And I'm going, "Date? Yes, I do. That has something to do with month. What does the word month mean?"
Wow.
And I couldn't remember.
So you had a fairly serious brain injury.
Yeah, they didn't know it at that time.
Okay.
And so what happens, I remember Russell sitting in the, they had done x-rays and found out there was nothing broken other than a broken leg.
Okay. Well, that's good news.
Yes, that's good news.
Yeah.
And then I was sitting in a stretcher in the hallway, and there was a male nurse on the side. And I remember coming to, and I remember sitting up and saying to him, I have a son. His name is Jason. I have to teach him the periodic table: hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and just rhyming off all the elements. Yeah. And then I remember just lying back down and just don't remember anything else again, right?
Okay.
Then what took place was they told me my wife and my parents were at the hospital. Mm-hmm. I remember telling myself, Niran, you got to get your stuff together, man. You got to pull this. And that pulled me out of my fog. Yeah. They sent me home that day.
The day of the accident.
The day of the accident, I got sent home with head injury protocol. Yeah. I'd get woken up every 2 hours.
An upper body injury.
And a cast on my leg.
Okay.
And I remember they telling me I had to come back in 3 days to check the leg because they wanted to make sure there was no internal hemorrhaging. Okay. My family doctor at that time told me to get off the pain meds as soon as I could because I was on codeine 3, Tylenol 3s and a whole bunch of naproxen and narcotic
bad stuff,
right? Yeah. So within 2 weeks, I came off of that. But what I found is that when I came off of it, I still couldn't function. So I remember friends of mine all said, "We're coming over to see you." Mm-hmm. I remember them calling me saying, "Hey, we're running a few minutes late. Can you order the pizza?" Yeah. I called pizza 3 times, and I hung up on the lady, because I could not make the decision of should we have pepperoni or mushrooms on the pizza. It was too big of a decision to make.
Wow.
I was diagnosed with what's called a mild traumatic brain injury. Mm-hmm.
It sounds a lot more than a mild one.
Yeah, when they say mild, it means there's no internal bleeding.
Oh, okay.
That's all it means.
Okay.
Okay. So as a result of that, I could not process new information. My long-term memory was still intact. Yeah. But new information, I could not codify what was happening and put it in storage in my mind. Okay. So I would have a conversation with somebody, and 5 minutes later, I would start the same conversation again.
Wow.
I had to learn how to read at a grade 3 level.
Right.
And work my way back up again.
So you had everything you had previous, you still had, right?
I still
sort
have.
Sort of. But anything you would take in, like, if we were going, like you just said, you couldn't make a decision. You couldn't
make a decision.
If I told you an address to a place, it
was too stressful. I couldn't
be able to get there.
Think about it this way. Yeah. The best way for me to explain it is, let's say you're listening to hip hop music, country music, pop music, and classical music, and it's all playing full volume at the same time, and somebody tells you to dance. Right?
What do I do?
What do I do? Right? Yeah. So that's what took place. Yeah. So I could not remember. And I remember my cognitive therapist at one point, I had enrolled in a PhD level course at McMaster at UFT because I wanted to test to see how I was doing. So I did this, and there was a textbook to read. Yeah. And as I read it, I would work with the cognitive therapist on this. And she would ask me to explain what I read, and I would tell her. But what I was doing was I was just BSing her. Yeah. Because of my prior knowledge with science. Yeah. This course was on neurology and the existence of the soul. So it was a science meets philosophy, religion course. And
real page turner.
Awesome. And it was great because when you say page turner, see, I go, yeah, it's a page turner, but I get your joke now. So she clued in that I was making stuff up, and
you were hiding it.
I was hiding it, right? Yeah. And without even me being aware of it, because I'd pick up a word here, and because of my prior knowledge, I would link the ideas together.
That's the only dot you could connect.
That's right.
Right. So, okay.
So we were at the Mississauga Main Public Library, and she walked over to the magazine rack, picked up a Home and Garden magazine, and she turned it and had me read an article on tulips. Yeah. I read 2 paragraphs. She asked me questions I had no idea. She said, from now on, you have to read stuff that you've never read before. So I'd always want to do real estate.
Yeah. So hang on, just before you talk about that, because that's a pivotal. How did that make you feel at that time? Like, I I would imagine it'd be just tremendous frustration and anxiety that would be there. Or did you just not even know how to process that? Like it just wasn't even connecting the dots. Like how were you feeling at that time?
So there's multiple feelings going on.
Yeah.
On one side of the coin, there was this huge sense of lostness.
Yeah.
That's something that was not just dear to me, but that I had lost a part of who I was. Yeah. I remember sitting with a neurologist, and they had done a 3D MRI, color MRI of my brain. Mm-hmm. And he pulls out these scans, and he shows me the scans, and he says, see this here? This is dark, this is dark, this is dark. Mm-hmm. It's showing up on the MRI, which tells us that it's not dead tissue. Yep. But it's dark, it is not functioning.
Right, okay.
And I'm looking at these pictures and I'm going, this is how I feel. Yeah. There are parts of me that seem all of a sudden vacuous, like a vacuum, like it does not exist. So that sense of lostness was going on. Yeah. I also had lost the sense of calling in my life. It had just gone. It's kind of like if I took this pen and I said, here's the pen, and then I remove the pen, that pen does not exist. Yeah. That's how I felt. It was just not there. Right. At the same time, what I did have going for me was my history with the way I had grown up, with my family, and with my faith. Mm-hmm. My parents, my mom is the kind of person, she just says, I can do anything. Right? She oozes so much confidence on my behalf that I can't help but show up. Yep. Right? Yep. So I had that going for me. My parents were and my family, Loria, my family was very supportive. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there was this huge sense of lostness. So I didn't know where I belonged anymore.
So lost, a little probably from frustration. Yes. Right?
Very angry.
Angry, yeah, I would imagine angry. Right. And probably just, it wasn't like the broken leg that you put a cast on, it gets healed. Is having the brain injury, probably nobody could give you a straight answer, and you just didn't, you knew you were broken. Yes. But put a cast on it and let's fix it. How do we fix this, right? It must have been...
Well, I remember doing 3 days of testing with a whole group of psychologists and clinical psychologists and neurologists, and they called me, and Dr. Moore was her name. She called me and Loria into the office, and she said, he does not understand, pointing to me, how serious this is. Right. She looked at me and she said, you will never work again in your life. Wow. She said, you may be able to teach a course here and there. You will never manage anything. Mm-hmm.
Well, I would imagine a part of your identity, you're very well educated and an academic. Yeah. I imagine a lot of your identity was wrapped around between this ear and this ear. Your mind was your greatest asset, and that was part of your identity. You were known as the professor. You were known as the person that had the answers. You were known as the thinker, right? And now that's gone.
And I came from a family of thinkers. Yeah. So it was just like, I liked playing sports, but I was never good at it. Yeah. Right? I was never good at those things. Yeah. But academically, I knew that I could, even if I disagreed with my own point, I could argue circles around people. Yeah.
And you could think your way through it.
I could think my way through it. Yeah.
Right. Holy moly. So you had to essentially learn how to read all over again. Yes. And then that's where real estate came into the picture. No, sorry, if you want to complete that story first?
No, just that reading. I could read. Yeah. I just couldn't remember what I read.
Okay, right. So you had to learn how to process the information coming in.
So my doctors wanted me to start at a grade 2 level. Yeah. Or grade 3 level. Yeah.
And Tom, read books. Cat.
Yes.
Tom
and remember what I read. Yeah. And I was too proud for that. So I started with Calvin and Hobbes. Yeah. The comic books.
Well, there you go. Have you ever? Who is the author of Calvin and Hobbes? What's his name? That'll come to me.
I can't remember.
You should send the author of that a little thank you note of that.
The funny thing is, my 2 boys remind me of Calvin and Hobbes.
Okay.
One's Calvin, the other's Hobbes.
So you're having to start over. With in many respects, there's an awful lot of just everything you had. You had everything you had, but really, there was a demarcation in your life that anything going forward, you weren't connecting the dots.
Yes. Right. And that process of trying to connect my previous life to my present life is still ongoing.
Right.
I haven't arrived yet.
So now that you look back at this, and we will get into the conversation about real estate, now that you look back at this, how do you relate to your accident now? How do you feel about it now, as we sit here 12 years later?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Well, let me ask another question before, while you're thinking that you can process that too. Have you ever had conversations with the lady that hit you?
Never.
Never?
Never even seen her.
What would you say if I was her sitting here right now in front of you? What would you say to her if she was sitting here?
I would say, what happened?
Yeah.
I'd want her to tell me in her own words what took place.
Yeah.
Because I believe that the way forward is always take responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the art of speaking about it is, in a way, taking some ownership.
Yeah.
At the same time, I would say to her, have an awesome life. How can I help you? I hold absolutely no animosity towards her.
100% forgiveness.
Yeah.
Right? Yep.
Yeah. Because I struggled with forgiveness, but my anger was not at her. My anger was more at God.
Okay.
Right? Than her.
Right. So really it was and I'm not putting words in your mouth because I want you to tell me in your own words, but I maybe heard that that accident maybe was a turning point to question your faith.
Yes.
And actually maybe strengthen your faith.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So maybe you've had a moment to reflect on that. What has that accident meant to you now?
It has changed the trajectory of my life as I had planned it.
Okay.
It has meant that I've had to come to terms with accepting that. And I do not like accepting things like that.
Right.
I don't.
Okay.
And so while it's been forced on me, at the same time, I have the choice to fight it, accept it, or leverage it.
Right.
And so I have chosen not so much to accept it, but more like to somewhere between accept and leverage.
Yes.
How's that? If that makes sense.
Got it.
In some ways, I still struggle with why did this happen?
Yep.
And the answer of, everything happens for a good reason.
Yep.
I don't buy. Like I find it philosophically and theologically weak in its presuppositions. It's just doesn't hold water for me.
Yep.
However, that it happened, now I have the choice to use it for the benefit of myself and those around me.
Right.
And that's a choice that's totally within my control.
Wow. Awesome.
Right?
So what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to quickly reset the camera here, but trust me, I promise we're getting to real estate. No, but here's the really cool thing is all that is of unbelievable important conversation to lead up to how real estate fits into all this too.
Yes,
but
it does.
As we've talked about many times, it's more important about who you become in the process of real estate as opposed to the buying of a property or doing an investment or doing a big deal. It's about who you become in the process.
Yes.
So we're going to be right back. Just going to do a quick reset of the cameras and be right back, everybody. Segment 3, welcome back, everybody. So completely different day out there today, Niran. Yesterday was crazy at the snowstorm and things. So today we got a beautiful sunny day. And usually a lot of the ones I've been doing is just these beautiful vistas. I did one with Brian Pullis of his office overlooking the downtown of where they're at and, out on farms and stuff. And sorry, I don't have much for you to look at here today. What is this? This is Finch, isn't it, or something? Or
Albion
and Highway 27 is just over here. So
just over.
We're not in the nicest area of town, but we don't need a beautiful area of town to tell a beautiful story, right? So, guys, I'm back here again with Niran, and holy moly, like the story, going way back to as a child in Sri Lanka and how that shaped who you were coming to Canada as an immigrant with no clothes on the clothes on your back, in essence. Your whole thing of you're educating yourself, and when you're at a point where people think that you made it, then all of a sudden you had this accident, right? And then you had to restart all over again. Right? Now, the next line of question we're going to get into how real estate played a role in all of this too. So you're at a point where a doctor told you, or was a neurologist told you that you needed to learn to read new things to train yourself to there.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you started reading real estate things, or tell that story.
I did. We ended up, I was at Chapters.
Yeah.
And we're walking through, and I always wanted to do stuff on real estate. I had an interest. So I thought, I need to buy a book on real estate too. You know, I can kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. And I found some big, thick books on real estate. And I'm looking at it, and my wife, Loria, picks out this book. It's a small book. And she goes, what about this? And I look at it and go, I don't know. It looks kind of simple. And it was by Don R. Campbell, Real Estate Investing in Canada, right? And I remember talking to the manager, and I said, this book's been damaged in the corner. So he gave me a discounted price on it.
There you go. There you go.
So I went home, and it took me a while to get through the book. Not because the book is complicated, but because my mind was not functioning within acceptable parameters. So I went through the book. I loved the system, and I loved the integrity. And I thought, if with this system and the approach the author Don Campbell was taking on it, the level of integrity that seemed to ooze out of the pages, said this is something that aligns with my moral compass.
Right.
So I reached out. I got online. Found a website about REIN. Ended up connecting with a member. And
do you know who was the member?
I don't even remember his name.
No worries.
He's no longer a member.
Okay.
Don't even remember his name. He had some properties up north, and he said, you should come for the conference. So I ended up going to the conference. And Russell, at that conference, I sat there, and you know what I did? I ran and hid in the bathroom stalls.
Oh, really?
Because I could not handle all the information coming.
Right.
So I needed to get alone.
Yeah, I would imagine the amount of information there, and if you can't actually process it, it would have been it would have been not only the hip hop, country, classical, throw in some heavy metal, some grunge, and throw into just loud screaming, tribal drums, right? Everything, right?
Everything was going on. And I was still not allowed to drive. They had removed my license because of my head injury. And I had not back to driving yet. My wife, Floria, picked me up from the conference, and she said, how did it go?
Right.
And I said, I have a goal. And she goes, what? And wasn't to buy real estate. My goal was this. I'm going to come back to this same conference 1 year from now. And in that year, what I'm going to do is within 1 year, I'm going to be able to stand in the foyer outside where everybody talks, not hide in the bathroom. And here was my goal. This is exact words I said to her. I want to carry on an intelligent conversation with Don Campbell, Peter Kinch, and Russell Westcott. That was you. That was my goal, was to have a conversation with you.
Wow.
In the foyer and not be able to process it. Right? That was my goal. So from that point on, I started pushing myself. And I would go and sit in a coffee shop because in a coffee shop, there was distraction. And I'd take a book with me and I'd read a few pages. Right? And I would do all the work I could in coffee shops. To this day, I work out of coffee shops.
That's where you have all your meetings.
All my meetings.
That's your office. When we were trying to book a space, and I go, do you have an office? It goes, no, I work out of coffee shops.
Yes, I do. I've lasted owners of coffee shops.
So guys, if you're listening to this, so for some of you that are listening to this, and I know everybody's a high performer, and people that listen to this, and I coach some very high performing people in real estate. And sometimes we just have to be patient with the process that we're doing and trust the process and not have the goals that you have to buy in a multifamily building. If you don't do it in 90 days, you're going to beat yourself up. Your goal in 1 year was just to have an intelligent conversation with 3 people. And that was probably more work than you've ever had to do in over a 12-month period to do that.
Yes, it was also emotionally a lot of work. Because you kept beating yourself up going, you should be able to do this. What's wrong with you, kind of a thing, right? And so a year later, I came back to that conference. And at the end of the conference, I considered REIN membership. And I ended up joining as a member.
Mm-hmm.
It took me close to a year before we bought our first property.
Right.
It was a tiny townhouse in Kitchener.
Okay.
And we bought our first property.
Mm-hmm.
A year later, we bought our second property.
Okay, so
Moving
that's
very
4
slow.
years. That's 4 years in
Yeah.
essence, right? Two properties in 4 years.
Yes.
One was to get out of the bathroom,
Yes.
right? And the next one was to have a conversation. In a
Yeah.
year, and then one house, and then two houses. So
Two houses.
4 houses,
Yeah.
4 years. Nice. Okay.
Then I noticed that I was getting better.
Yeah.
I wasn't back to normal yet, but
Yeah.
I was much better than I was.
Yeah.
I knew myself. I knew that if I came out to a real estate meeting, the next day I was going to be a basket case. I knew that.
Yeah.
So I just,
It's almost like a big giant perception of sensory overload, and it was like
Yes.
being hungover or something
Yes.
the next day because you
yes,
just take
exactly
so much
like
in.
being hungover.
Yeah, it takes so much in, right?
Yes. So then what? At least I've had some neurologists actually tell me it is like being hungover.
There you go.
That's what they've said to me. Anyway, so and then I noticed that I was starting to attract other people's capital,
Yeah.
and I started placing
Yeah.
other people's capital.
Okay. So let's so 4 years, 2 places, teaching yourself to learn essentially. Why don't we go to the end and then we'll come back. So today, as you sit here today, what's your portfolio look like today? Like whether you measure in doors or value or whatever, what would we say? I want to give people the perspective of what can happen in a period of time.
If I can include the properties that are pending closing,
Sure, absolutely.
in the next month.
However you measure it.
In the
right?
next month,
Yeah.
we'd be around 54 doors, something like that.
54 doors.
Yes.
In give or take. Well, when was the buy of the book? Do you remember the date of the buy of the book?
I don't remember.
So it was 12 years ago for the accident. And then it was
maybe 11 years ago for the buy of the book.
Okay.
10 years ago
for the first conference.
For the first conference. 9 years ago for the first property.
Yeah. So we're talking a decade.
8 years. Yes.
Give or take a decade.
Now I've picked up a lot of speed in the last 2-3 years.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Which is a typical trajectory most people get on, right? Okay, so holy moly, from literally teaching yourself to learn to read again, to hiding in the bathroom of a conference, to having an intelligent conversation, to buy another property. Now you're at close to 54 doors upcoming right away. And honestly, this is just me speaking here. This is just barely even scratching the surface, really. So, but this is your story. So. What did you start doing in the realm of that? Because you ran out of your own capital after the first couple properties that you had bought, or did you have to raise capital right from day one?
No, didn't have to raise capital right from day one. We did a very, very scary move that I never recommend anybody does.
Okay.
When we realized that we had no money saved and we wanted to buy an investment property, and the first property, we went and we refinanced our house up to 95% loan to value on our primary residence.
Yep.
We took that capital and we invested in our first 2 investment properties.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Hindsight, looking back, it was a good decision.
It was
However,
a good decision. I never recommend anybody to. I believe in pulling money out of your own property, but not to 95% loan to value.
Yeah.
That's just too scary even now for me to think about it.
Okay. So, what would you say? How were people starting to come to you? Like you just the way you were showing up, or what was that? So you were by far you were not an expert. You'd only had 2 places, and a lot of people, there's a lot of fear, and people say this all the time is but I'm not an expert, right? Why would people want to invest with me? Because I don't know what I'm doing yet.
Yes, absolutely. That was going through my mind, and I found it really difficult when people would come to me and say, "Can you help me with this?"
Yeah.
I would just leave money and clients at the table because I wouldn't know how to. I was not emotionally able to grasp that.
Yeah.
Then it was after a RAIN meeting. I was talking to you, and I know none of this is scripted. This is actually the way it happened. I was talking to you, and you looked at me and you said, "Niran, the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king."
A famous quote by Dan S. Kennedy.
Right? And I said,
I changed it a little bit now. Actually, I changed it to in the land of the royalty. No, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed person is royalty. Just to
okay.
gender, make it a little different gender.
And you and I had a conversation about it.
Yeah.
And you said, you intimated to me that people that I was meeting didn't have half the knowledge I did.
Yep.
And therefore, I brought value to that discussion on real estate. And that shifted things for me.
Oh, good. And you know what? And I don't think it was a big shift to you for a man of as much service and of value you add in service. And I 100% believe the more people you help and serve, the more people that'll want to do business with you. Right. So I think it wouldn't have been a big stretch for you to connect a few of those dots to the amount of people he helped and served and provided value. And then lo and behold, people would have became business partners or money partners out of that as well. So,
they would have. Yeah. However, I find that there are certain events or moments that are catalytical, so to speak. They and that was one of those. I remember walking back from the front of the stage to the back. You had finished a presentation. It was the end of the night. You were tired, and we were walking back together through the tables, and that's when we had that conversation.
Well, you just never know what you can say and what you can offer to somebody.
So,
might be something to be able to change their trajectory, right? Just one of those little side comments and pivotal moments and things like that. Okay, so you were. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean you're.
No, so with the real estate, more than the doors, Russell, I'm not sure whether I do a good job of being able to track this. But what is most meaningful to me, more than the doors, is the level of impact that this is a lot. I have been invited into some of the darkest moments of people's lives and into some of their happiest moments.
Right.
Because of the mix in my life of being a person of faith, so to speak, and because of real estate. Yep. I am amazed at the contribution that I've been allowed to make, and I've been part of.
And you treat this whole thing about, raising other people's capital and putting into real estate, you treat it more importantly, just like what I teach I'm not going to use the term preach, but maybe to the point of preaching, is that it's more important of the why somebody is doing it and the personal connection and the relationship you're working with than the actual dollars and cents and the money we're going to make and the ROIs. And everybody thinks it's about the ROI. And everybody thinks it's about the money partners, need to get what kind of return they're going to get and what kind of money. But actually, if you really dive down deep into it, it's so much deeper into that, into their level of why they're doing it and what does the money mean to them more than anything.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
So what I've found is that when I don't raise capital, capital comes to me.
Right.
And I've never gone looking for capital to invest.
Yeah.
It tends to come to me because what I do, or I try to do, is help people make money and have a discussion about money. Yeah. But more importantly, I help them have a discussion about how they're spending their time. And most importantly, I help have a conversation about that which is most meaningful for them. Yeah. And when we enter the conversation of what is most meaningful for somebody, then real estate becomes a process,
it's a vehicle.
a step,
it's
a vehicle right? To achieve that, or at least die trying.
Yeah. Okay. So I know there's going to be a lot of people here, and some people might be new to the whole game, and they say intellectually what you just said made sense.
Yes.
Right. I get it. Russell's been talking about this for a long time. I get it. Now, how do I do this? Like, how do I start? Like, first of all, I imagine it'd be a choice, but I'm gonna let you maybe. I haven't prepped you at all for these questions, but how would somebody take these first steps to being able to have these conversations with people? Like, what is some how-to steps?
Oh, Okay. I'm just going to talk. It's going to
Just
be
talk off the top and let's see where it goes.
So one, get very, very clear and at peace with yourself.
So start with yourself.
Start with yourself.
Yep.
Journal. Journaling will help reflect back to you who you are.
Yep.
Get a hold of a handful of people that you trust and air out your dirty laundry.
Yep.
I'm not saying you need to be perfect, but you need to own your imperfection.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And once you figure out, and once you get really, really comfortable with who you are, and not once, while you're getting comfortable with who you are.
It's always an ongoing process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be the light. Just be willing to be seen.
What does be light mean? Be light?
Be the light.
Be the light. Okay.
Yes. Willing to be seen.
Yes. Okay.
I have people that come to me and say, can you help me raise capital?
Yeah.
And they want me to help them with what's the system?
Yeah.
What's the documentation?
What's the structures?
All this. And all those are important conversations to have, but they're secondary.
Yeah.
If you want people to trust you with their money, they have to be able to trust you.
Well, and before that, you have to be able to trust yourself.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And some people, I have that conversation is, people will always go, well, I can't believe somebody would do this deal. Like, why would somebody ever do that? And I said, well, first of all, just don't, you're putting your words into somebody else's mouth. It's probably because you don't trust yourself in the process yet. Yeah. Right? If the hardest thing, and I'm deadly serious when I say this, the hardest thing I have as an educator, somebody who inspires people to take action, one of the hardest things I have to do is to get people to believe in themselves that they can do this.
Yes.
Right? I believe everybody can do it. The process is not difficult, but the hardest part is actually to get yourself to believe that you actually can do it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so now that we've worked on ourselves, okay, so any more, do you want to add to that?
No, I think of people like Stephen Covey.
Yep.
First things first.
Yep.
Jordan Peterson talks about cleaning your room. Hold yourself accountable.
Yep.
And when you keep your promises to yourself, your confidence grows.
Right.
So I got really focused on creating standards for myself that were achievable, but still caused me to stretch.
Yeah.
And then keeping them.
And then honoring the promise to yourself.
To yourself.
Right.
Right.
And then, how are you ever going to get somebody else to participate with you if you actually can't even honor your own self-promises?
Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm probably a little bit over the top on that end now.
Right. So you're on the far extreme, right?
Well,
a little bit.
My wife and I were having a conversation the other day, and I was speaking at an event for Christmas.
Yeah.
And 700 people, and it was in Scarborough, and it was a big Christmas orchestra, and I was the keynote speaker. And she said to me, how come you're nervous about this? I said, well, I'm always nervous before I speak.
Yeah.
I said, it's because I don't compete. I don't try and do a good job. I have a vision of how my future self is going to deliver this.
Yeah.
And then I compete with my future self.
Yeah.
And if I do that, it lifts me to a whole new standard.
Wow. So actually a line of question I did want to get under, and I think you might have addressed it already, but let's go down that route. A lot of people, and I had a webinar last night, and just there's still a lot of fear around this. And you say capital comes to you. Understood. But I'm scared. I don't know what I'm doing, that I think I don't know what I'm doing.
Awesome.
What is some of your best advice for somebody that may be feeling a little bit of the fear?
Embrace it.
Embrace it.
It's part of the journey. You will never, if you stop being afraid of what you're doing, you're not growing.
Right.
You are not growing. Fear is normal.
Yeah.
It's how you mitigate that fear. Yeah. How you bring it down a few notches.
Well, actually, you can use the fear to bring out the best in you. Like it's a way of getting up for the occasion, right? Some people fear cracks them, and some people fear makes them break world records in doing things, right?
I often notice that when I'm afraid of something, within that fear, there is something it points me to, a weakness in my own armor, something that I know that I'm unsure about.
Yeah.
And because of that, I can then use that to go and address that very issue.
Right. So it serves you.
It serves me.
Yeah. And
Right.
don't, so many people want to run away from fear. Or they want to avoid it, and they never want to have it. As a matter of fact, some of your most fearful moments is when you have some of your biggest breakthroughs.
Yep.
You just told in your story here some of the most fearful moments when you were growing up in Sri Lanka, where you came together as a village and you had, I probably won't use the exact words, but God came to you in certain respects in many cases.
Absolutely.
When you had your accident, right, and you were fearful about how do I function as a human being? A book came to you.
Yeah.
Right, and then the conference, and then different things, and just serving at a higher level.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it, I renoed property a couple years ago, and I've done a ton of renos, but this was my biggest reno I had ever taken on. It was a $241,000 renovation.
Okay.
So, we bought a semi downtown Toronto.
Yep.
Structurally unsound.
Yep.
We underpinned and rebuilt the whole house and sold it.
Yep.
But in the middle of it, when we were underpinning, my underpinner calls me and says, "Niran, we've hit groundwater." I go, "Okay, pump it out." And he goes,
"No, I don't think you understand."
Exactly. So I realized that sometimes I have to stop and ask myself the question, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Right? So I go, "Oh, what does that mean?" He goes, "You probably need to get down here because the water's coming in faster than we can pump it out."
Yeah.
So I get down there. By now, I'm there, and luck would have it, I was able to get my geotech engineer there, my structural engineer there, and and the city inspector.
Yep.
We're all down in the basement,
Yep.
and I'm looking underneath the window, and that crack under the window wasn't there earlier. And there's water coming in, and these guys are talking about, we need to drill down 8 feet to hit rock, and it's going to cost, $100,000, $80,000 more. It was going to throw the whole budget sideways.
Yep.
And I remember standing there and I was totally afraid. I remember calming myself and saying, what's the opportunity here? The opportunity is not about the project. It's about me. How am I going to rise to this level of leadership?
Yeah.
And my job was to forge consensus with 4 different people and address the solution. And I turned around to them and I said, "Guys, we need to solve this now.
Yeah.
The options you have does not work. Come up with a better option."
Yeah.
And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And within 20 minutes, we had a solution.
There you go.
And it threw me off budget. Instead of throwing me off budget $80,000, it threw me off budget $8,000.
Oh, there you go.
Instead of $27,000, we came to $35,000. So
good solution.
Yes, but here's the thing: when stuff goes off the rails, number one thing, it is an opportunity for you to grow.
Yes.
And once you play at that new level, you never get to go back.
Yeah, and here's the thing: is don't get me wrong, we're not saying go intentionally seek for things to go off the rails.
Absolutely not. Avoid them at all costs.
Avoid them at all costs. However, it's impossible. It will always happen.
Murphy makes it so.
It always will. Something will go wrong no matter how good and how much planning and how much praying and how much faith you have. Something will always go wrong.
It will go wrong.
Yes. So you're not out there seeking it. You're actually, but what do you do with it is the most important.
It is the most important.
Right. Okay.
You were asking about joint venture capital. We may have gotten off the rails here.
I was actually going to get into a whole line of, and we can get into lots of some tactical stuff and nuts and bolts about how you structure it and stuff like that. But I don't know if we need to go that route or not. But we can if you want. Okay. And we could. Could be really quick. Like how do you structure things with people with your deals coming in? Do you do limited partnership, corporations, just joint ventures? Do you, how do you?
At this point, everything I've done have been joint ventures.
Yep.
So at this point, I have only one door that does not have joint venture capital on it.
And do you do a straight 50-50 type splits, or what?
Yes.
How do you structure your deals?
So structure of deals works in a couple different ways. One is sometimes people don't want any risk at all.
Yep.
They just want a loan, and I pay them an interest on it.
Yeah, a debt investment.
Right?
Yep.
Just a straight debt on it.
Yep.
The main way that when I started was I was doing 50-50 splits.
Yep.
I would take 50% of the profit.
Yep.
My partners would take 50% of the profit. What was happening was I was attracting a lot of entrepreneurs as my joint venture partners. Mm-hmm. And when it came time to sell the house, they did not want to sell because they saw the numbers.
Yeah, and they didn't want to pay the tax bill. Potentially.
I don't even know if they even thought of the tax bill. They saw the returns they were getting, and they wanted to keep it.
Yep.
So I have to either by contract force the sale of the property.
Yep.
I have to buy them out, which then affects the relationship.
Yep.
So I did not want to do that. So I still have properties that I've held that, that just continue at a 50-50 split. And we can't pull the capital out because banks don't like them and banks don't like me at this present point because I got too many doors under me. And so
well, you just have to hold on to it.
You just have to hold
and make more money.
Make more money. That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Then I recently have shifted to a different split where I take a much lower profit on it, but I take an asset acquisition fee at the beginning.
I mean, after a conversation you and I had.
An asset acquisition fee and then an asset management fee. What this does is it put food on the table now for me because I'm full-time, right?
And did that happen after the conversation that we had fairly recent, or were you already thinking about that before?
I was already thinking about it, and I had already instilled that before. But after our conversation, it got really, really easy and clear for me as to how to structure it.
And then I shared that interview with Mike Ponte with you at the same time.
Yes. And I listened to that and I thought, hey, this works. I'm not the only guy out here doing this.
As a matter of fact,
this is not nuts.
in the realm of big capital and bigger projects, it's actually, it's a course of act. It's nature. It's natural.
It's natural.
Right. So, but I just actually looked at the time here. I have to reset the cameras one more time. So on the last segment, we'll go one more segment. You know, we might even go two more. Who knows where this is going to go? We have all day.
Okay.
We're going to talk a little bit more of the tactical side of the raising capital and the joint ventures and structuring. But then also want to get into a conversation about what's next for you. What is the next thing on the horizon for Niran? So guys, we'll be right back and I hope you're enjoying this and we'll talk to you right away. So welcome back everybody, segment 4 here with the one, the only Niran. So one of my goals has been, as you guys can tell, is I want to bring people to you that maybe you've never heard before. I honestly think, Niran, there's something bigger here for you coming very shortly. Like, I think your story and who you are and how you serve and how you help people, you need to be brought out to a larger group of people. And I know you're already doing some speaking and things like that too. And my attitude always in everything in life is, I don't ever look at anything as a competition. You know, some people will sit there and go, well, why would you want to bring somebody? Maybe Niran's going to be your competitor one day. And as a matter of fact, I hope Niran does better than I ever do. And I know you will, you already have. Because
I highly doubt
that. I know you will, because my attitude 100% is I get inspired by other people that do amazing, great things. And that just helps me serve more people at the same time. If I was sitting there looking at you as a competitor, I would be just stunting my own growth at the same time. So I'm here to help you become as much as possible and grow as big as you can do, because I want to see what that could become, and that will actually inspire so many other people, and it actually helps each other, right?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I probably didn't frame it correctly, but
no, I know what you're talking about, because I have similar conversations with people, and I just think that the world is so much bigger, and there's so much opportunity that. For me, I never see other people as competition unless they choose to compete with me. Right? I see everybody as strategic partners. Right?
Yeah, but
together.
It can be very healthy that if you actually have a drive to want to keep elevating yourself up, but if your intention is to elevate yourself up at an expense of another person, or then that's an issue. Right?
Absolutely.
That potentially becomes an issue. We were talking about in the last segment, we're talking about, getting into some of the nuts and bolts of joint venturing, and we will go that direction, but I think this is a deeper level conversation for sure. But and you were talking about how you've raised your capital and how capital comes to you, and then we're talking about now how you structure it, and now you're changing your tactic and doing a little bit where you take a less of an ownership share and you get acquisition fees and management fees and disposition fees and things like that. How's that transition been going? By the way? Yeah. No problem with the conversations? Are you sitting there going, why didn't I do this sooner?
No, because I think when you and I had the conversation, I had already initiated that. So all my JV partners that were coming on board at that time were already aware of this, this shift.
Yeah. It's a natural evolution.
Yes. Yeah. And I just didn't know what the nuts and bolts of it should look like. And that's where you and I had a chat about it.
So what have you come to the conclusion of some of the nuts and bolts? Like, what have you implemented since then? Has it just been a structure arrangement in your agreements? Is it just mainly the conversation, get everyone on board? How's that been going?
So in the shared, I'm doing an acquisition fee up front.
Yep.
And then
1%, 1.5%, what's the?
Depends on my equity share.
Okay.
1% if it's 60-40.
Yep.
If it's 30-70, it's 1.5%.
Okay, got it.
Okay. And then I would take a percentage of the rent coming in.
So administration fee, what percentage? Does that depend too? Or
it depends again on the 60-40, anywhere from 5% to 12%. Right?
So included in that 5 to 12, does that include the property management costs?
No,
or that's
property
even
management
separate?
is separate.
Okay.
Right? Property management is separate. It really, a lot of it depends on the building as well.
Yep.
Like some of these are multifamily buildings.
Yep, absolutely.
And in multifamily buildings, and we're not like, some investors come to me with $50,000 or $100,000 and they're into one townhouse. It's a 20% down deal. If I put a huge rental cost on that it's going to kill the deal.
Yeah, it just doesn't work.
It doesn't work, right? On a multifamily deals where we're doing 60-40 splits, 40% down, totally works. Because our goal in multifamily is more to buy the property. Because when I'm buying a multifamily, I'm not buying turnkey. I'm buying undervalued assets, right?
Utilized, some things that need work.
They need work. And then whether that work has to do with the management side of the building or in the building itself, or sometimes both. Then after about 4 or 5 years, we then transition. We are able to pull capital out and my investors get that capital back.
Right.
And as a result, they're very happy. Their ROI goes through the roof because now their invested capital is low.
We've got zero in. In essence, that's the goal, right?
Yeah, that's the goal. And we do CMHC funding.
And then it's just, sorry for, the term Ron Popeil. Do you know who Ron Popeil is?
I've heard the
Set
name.
it and forget it.
Set it and forget it.
Yes. You just set it and forget it. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And what is that? It's a rotisserie chicken thing. Ron Popeil's a famous infomercial guy.
Okay.
Right? Set it and forget it. Right? Program.
You're a chicken guy. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So really, you subscribe to keep it as simple as possible.
Keep it as simple as possible. Right now I'm doing joint ventures. I am considering limited partnerships now, but I have not. I know enough to get myself in trouble. How's that?
And then you don't overcomplicate it. Where you actually get really deep into is the qualification and the reasons why you're doing it. You get really deep in a little bit more. You do almost like not quite counseling with the people, but you actually offer a lot of life guidance with people and time freedoms and things like that. But the way you structure the money part of it is just really simple. Yeah,
it's the money part is simple. Normally, when someone comes to me and says, "Hey, I'd like to talk about maybe investing some funds with you," my pushback usually is, "Are you sure you want to?" And I kind of push people away. Because I don't want any easy come, easy go. Right. So I'll often say, you should read this book, and I give them Don Campbell's book on real estate investing.
Because your first attachment is that they win. That is your attachment.
That's right.
Is that they win, and if them winning means that they do it themselves, you're attached to them winning. Like by all means, I'm rah. Let's go do this, right?
Yeah.
Most people won't.
Most people, And then if they read the book and they come back to me, then I say, okay, if you like that system, there's a couple ways you can invest in real estate. One, you can go do it on your own. If you want to do it on your own, I will point you in the right direction. I'll introduce you to the right people. I'll tell you what to read. You need to commit to some time to learn and do the work.
Yeah, and be prepared that there's a lot of work to do.
There's a lot of work. And I say to people, I say, you can lose your shirt in this business if you don't do it well. I love buying properties that have been owned by somebody who watched HGTV half an hour show and decided to do something. So, and if you want to do that, go for it. You have my full support. Some people want me to coach them on how to do this. And then a number of people come to me and say, Niran, if we did it with you, it's faster, it's quicker, we feel safer. So they will partner with me. So what I offer, the attraction for me that I think that people are being attracted to is safety, integrity, and I will help you learn. So I will roll coaching into the joint venture.
Well, and guys, so for many of you, if you're gone through the training, what Niran just described was the investor commitment ladder that I teach. In essence, somebody comes in at just this conversation, you have one conversation, they're very low commitment, right? They've had to maybe invest some time to read a book. Okay, now all of a sudden the next step up on the ladder is maybe you've had a coffee meeting together and then you've talked about maybe a coaching. Maybe they come and they get some coaching and they watch, do some further consulting with you and things like that. So their next step up on the ladder. And then they now realize how much work it is and they just go, geez, eventually they come to the conclusion is, I don't have the time. Why don't I just work with you, Niran? So you just keep working them up and I know you're not probably familiar with this. It's something I've just recently created. A framework is on this axis is commitment going from top to bottom up to, and this one here is money, right? And so eventually you just step people up a ladder. Okay. And what you just did is you also protected yourself. If you ever get people from Securities Commission ever come a knocking, how well do you know this client? Right. And you know them because you had a conversation here and you documented, you gave them a book, they read it, you offered them some coaching, you did this. And eventually 8 months later, they became an investment partner. You know them very well. Done.
Absolutely.
Right? You're protected.
And the other thing is that, Russell, it doesn't matter to me, or what matters to me is that they take action. What does not matter to me is that they take action with me. They've got to, if they can do it on their own, more power to them. If they can't, I'm here to help.
And
what's going to work for you?
One of the reasons I'm out here in Toronto here is I actually have I have 2 presentations I'm giving, but I actually have 3 investor presentations while I'm out here too, with people from Toronto in looking to invest in some projects that I'm working on. And that's just the next part of the ladder is we're now getting together to have the next level conversation. And we're going to talk, we're going to have that discovery session. It's what I teach now. And I need to get you involved in I got all my trainings all brand new, just as an FYI. Right? So I'm putting this on camera. You now have you're now part of the community. I'll give you full access to everything. Just because of how you've shown up here and how you've helped, and I know how many people you can help. I'm 100%.
Thank you.
You will be part of our community. Okay, so I'm committing to that. So hold me to that. Okay.
It's on camera now.
Absolutely. So where I'm going. So I don't know if we need to. Sorry, go ahead.
So I was going to. We seem to be drifting into the nuts and bolts of the joint venture. So let me throw out a couple other ideas on this that I've learned the hard way. When somebody commits to a joint venture, the first step I do, and this is after they've said, I've kind of pushed them back, and they've come back and said, no, we really want to do this. I then outline the process for them, and the first step in the process is a letter of intent. And the letter of intent, I say to all my clients, I say, the letter of intent is simply there so that you and I are clear on what we're going to do. And the letter of intent will have how much capital they're going to invest and everything. And I say, once you sign this letter, within 48 hours of you signing this letter, I need to see a non-refundable initial deposit. And it's it might be $5,000. But it's non-refundable. The reason I initiated this is because I had one partner who came on, and then I had gone and done all the work, found the property, and they decided they didn't want to, they had a change of heart.
I hear you.
And so I thought, well, and what bothered me about that is it's not just what I do. It's what all my team has done. My realtors, breaking my reputation, everything. It affects everything, right? So that's what we did. And, so I do a letter of intent, transfer of initial deposit. That is part of their investment capital. So as long as everybody follows through, that's part of their investment capital. Nice. It's not.
Okay.
Before we go to joint venture,
then you do to the agreement. So before we go past that, I'm sorry, I'm going to put one condition on your enrollment into the community. Absolutely. Would you be able to share that letter of intent example
totally.
with you?
Yeah,
perfect. Okay.
Absolutely.
Because what I do is I think I have 3 on there right now.
Okay.
I love collecting other people's
letter
things that they do and just all different parts of the process.
Russell,
right?
For all I know, this could be a tweaked up version of one of your letters of intent.
It probably is. But here's the thing is we have an entire community that wants to learn from each other. So why don't we just, I'd be honored if we could share that. Okay, good.
No problem.
So really, you just keep it really simple. And really, do you subscribe to the better the qualification process is? Like the more time and work you do in the qualification, the easier it is to actually execute the deal.
Yes.
Right.
And I'll tell you, one of the things is that what is important to me is that my partner remains my friend long after the deal is done.
No matter what happens.
No matter what happens. Yeah. So from day one, I tell them, I say, you know what, we can sit and have a talk about it. I know you want to joint venture with me. Yep. We're going to talk about the letter of intent. Yep. At the end of our conversation, you get to walk away without any commitment. Yep. I get to walk away without any commitment. Yep. And we remain friends. Yep.
That no matter what happens. It's one thing to, sometimes you can say that. And however, sometimes it changes.
It changes, yes.
Right, and you figure that out after the fact, right? So okay, so very cool. Now I don't want to not taint. We could, what we could do, Niran,
What's that?
And let's commit to this. Why don't you and I sit down and make a point? And it doesn't have to be right away. It'll be maybe months from now. But let's sit down. And let's have a really how-to tactical conversation around this whole thing, around how you do it and structure it and all that kind of stuff too. Because I wanted to, and that could actually be part 2 of this beautiful conversation that we just had. So how would you summarize where you've been and the journey that you've gone on and all the things that have come into your life? I know a little bit because we've had brief conversation about this, but I actually want to hear more about what's next for you. Like, what vision do you see for yourself of taking this to the next level for you? Not just in real estate, maybe just yourself as a person.
I wish I could give you a clear answer.
Well, why don't you give me the answer that's here today? Yeah, I got it. Well, maybe we can start getting some clarity around the conversation.
Absolutely. Right? So I want to create a platform where people can come to this platform, or me, or right now it's just me and my team, so to speak, and where they can have conversations surrounding money, surrounding time, and self-leadership. Yep. And so that they can focus on what's really, really meaningful for them.
Right.
And in that process, I want to be able to, so somebody comes to me and they say that they're having, like my typical coaching meetings, right? People will come to me and they think we're going to talk about real estate. And we'll end up talking about the relationship with their father or their son that is not as well as it could be. Yep. And how can we solve that? And when we address those issues, the investing issues become so much easier to deal with.
Because who you are and in the process of becoming a real estate investor matters more.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think for me in the future, I want to increase my public speaking. Yep. That's something I used to do quite extensively before I had my accident. Yep. So I want to do that quite aggressively. I want to work with bringing in lots of joint venture capital. Yep. Especially even from abroad. Yep. From overseas. Yep. Abroad is a very Sri Lankan term we use.
Okay. Yes.
I want to bring in capital, and I want to place that capital and do well. So in one side of what I see for myself is somebody who can bring in capital, place that capital in a safe real estate vehicle, and get great returns. So that's there. At the same time, I want to address the self-leadership issue. Of being able to lead yourself no matter what happens. And have those conversations. Right.
And I get it that it's a big giant. That's a big giant ball of yarn.
Yes.
Right. And sometimes the first step is to articulate that that's what you want to do. That's step number one. And maybe somebody who's watching this will sit there and go, I know how to connect you. I can connect you. At least take the next step, and I'll connect you to the next step and next step and next step. So. Do you have any other desire? I believe you used to do like a lot of work with youth too, youth as a youth pastor. Was it youth pastor? Do you want to work more with the adults, or you want to work with the youth, or a little bit of both, or you just want to help the people that want to be helped?
I think there are two areas that I want to work with. One is especially men in their 40s and 50s. That age group. There is a when in my conversations with my friends of that age group, I keep running into people that have a tremendous sense of lostness, of feeling like life has happened to them, and somehow life has happened to them more than they have lived life. And they still have a lot of gifts and skills and time and heart they want to give, but they're stuck. I want to enter that conversation. If you ask me, how do we do this? I have no idea. Yet. At the moment. At the moment. But I want to enter the conversation, have a conversation about lostness and what it means to be a man in the 21st century. And I want to deal with that. And I find that a lot of my JV partners come from that group as well. Then flip side is that I have lots of conversations with millennials, and they're having a slightly different conversation. Their conversation is, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. I want to find meaning now.
Some identity, right? And some meaning, more so than meaning, right?
Yes. But the difference in the millennial world is that millennials think that you can find and create meaning overnight. Swipe left or swipe right.
That's right.
right? And it doesn't happen that way. And I want to be part of the conversation of building tenacity and a backbone and perseverance and resilience within the millennial community.
So really everything that we've talked about here of your story leading up to this moment is actually you doing the work to lead you to this next logical step for you and take it into a larger platform.
Into a larger platform. There's a third platform.
Okay.
It
gets deeper.
It gets deeper. Yes.
So you haven't thought about this at all, have you?
No,
I'm joking.
I just don't have my mind map is very convoluted.
You know the mission and you know the vision and you know what it is. You don't see all the steps.
All the steps.
Yet.
Yes. So
you just need somebody to tell you maybe a little thing on the side about in the land of the blind, the one-eyed person's royalty, right?
Yes. So in the third area is I am deeply concerned or about the tremendous amount of brain drain we have in our world. We do not tap into the intellectual capacity of people around us. Because we have not been taught to think effectively. And on one side, in the Western world, I find that we are not taught to think critically. We are taught to think in small bites and Twitter feeds and respond with memes so I want to enter the conversation of how do we think properly in the Western critical thinking in the Western world. And then in the third world countries, what I find is that poverty affects so drastically, it paralyzes any brain power. I want to enter the conversation and have solutions to mine the academic brain power within the third world. So I want to create that. One of my JV partners is chancellor at a university in Nairobi.
Yep.
And he and I have had a few conversations, and I want to do something more to rip into people's minds. And I know that sounds very strong, but that's how I feel. I want to get in there, and I want to teach people everything from, again, critical thinking skills, but also create the economic world around them that will release them to be who they are.
Wow.
So when I look at, we talk about, I recently heard a stat, and I haven't looked into the stat, but it's that the idea is that when you increase the GDP of the average person, a lot of the other issues that are first world problems take care of themselves.
Absolutely.
So I want to enter that world of conversation.
Wow. So no little feet.
No little feet. Yes.
And I'm not here to say I'm here to whatever way, shape, or form in my small way I can do. I'd love to be able to help and support some of those things too.
Thank you.
Let's put it this way: knowing where you've come from, knowing everything you've done, and knowing all the obstacles and resiliency and things that you've done. I already consider this a done deal of what you're trying to accomplish, because I just know who you are.
Thank you.
Before I forget, please tell people where they can get a hold of you. You have a website? Is there a phone number? If people want to reach out to you, maybe they know somebody to connect you to, or maybe they want to have a further conversation or whatever. How can people get a hold of you?
Easiest way. My email. KW, K as in Kitchener, W as in Waterloo. Homes, HOMES at live.ca.
kwhomes@live.ca.
kwhomes@live.ca. My phone number is 416-821-6811.
What's the name of your business, your company?
It's all numbered companies.
Oh, okay.
Here, I'll tell you a funny story.
So if I was to put a little thing along the bottom about, do you just want your name put on there, or do you want a business name, or what do you want?
My name, Real Estate Investment Advisor.
Okay, done.
Okay.
Awesome.
A number of years ago, I was at a meeting. Derek Lobo was speaking.
Know Derek very well.
And Derek had introduced, Don Campbell had introduced me to Derek. So someone else was speaking. I'm standing at the back of the room. And Derek and I are having just a conversation at the back of the room while the event is going on. Derek leans over to me and he says, "Ryan, give me a card." And I said, "I don't have a business card." And he goes, "You brought in all that capital without a business card?" And I was being a little snarky, and I said, "Yes, I did, without a business card." And he looked at me and goes, "Think of what you could have brought in with a business card." The next day I went and got business cards.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's my area where I'm weakest at is in the website, that whole social media stuff it's not my strength. And every time I go, I say I've got to create time to do this. I end up with the partner that has capital that needs to be placed.
Got too many deals on the go. Well, here's the thing: is it served you without it at the moment, and maybe the next version and evolution is to help it for there. So, a couple things before we do. So, I want you to give some thought to the final question I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
I'm going to offer you something before I ask the question, but here's the question.
Okay.
I'm going to give you the exam before you have to take the test.
All right.
And I'm just going to ask you like a final inspirational thought that if somebody's sitting here watching this and they're maybe a little stuck, or they're just not sure what to do, what would be something inspirational that you can offer them? Okay.
You
can offer them. Okay. But before you answer that question, what I wanted to do is I wanted to just share how grateful I am. How grateful that who you show up as a person. And every time we have ever had a conversation, sorry if it sounds like it's about me, but I feel like I'm a better person every time we have ever interacted.
Thank you.
And if you have people in your life that will always make you feel a better person after you've had an interaction with them, if there was more people like that in this world, we'd have fewer problems.
Yes.
Right. And I just wanted to acknowledge who you are and how you show up. And you just show up fully and in service every time we have ever interacted. I'm just blown away that you just keep bringing the bar and showing up higher and serving at a higher level each and every time we do that. So I just wanted to offer
Thank you so
that.
much, Russell.
Okay. So the last question is, what would be a final thought, an inspirational thought that you'd love to leave with people? And you may just want to use that camera there if you want to get into the soulful moment, the soul moment, if you want to share some with people. So no pressure, though.
No pressure.
So the final word is yours.
Final word, inspirational thought. You are your greatest asset. And no one is going to fight for you and be who you're supposed to be unless you do it. I think I am often saddened by people I meet who don't see themselves the way they should see themselves. I'm not talking about thinking of yourself higher than you are, but not using the gifts and talents that have been placed within your grasp. It really ticks me off. Yep. And if you can find a way to break through your assumptions about yourself and your fears, you can evolve.
Nice.
I sure hope you enjoyed this in-depth training video, and I applaud you for sticking around right to the very end. I believe in people that show up, put in the work, put in the time, and effort should be rewarded. If you're interested in taking the next step, if you're interested in going deeper and mastering what you just learned about in this training video, I encourage you to check out the Raising Capital Academy. So if you have found that you've received some value from the YouTube channel, or maybe you've listened to a podcast, you're only scratching the surface. That truly is just 1/10 of 1% of all the content and materials that have been created that are waiting for you on the other side. So I encourage you to check out the Raising Capital Academy. There's more than 100+ hours of video content, audio content, exclusive training material for those that are interested in taking the next step, those that are interested in going towards mastery, those that are interested in moving forward with velocity. So I would encourage you, wherever you're watching this video, around this video will be a link where you can check out all the details of the Raising Capital Academy. After you've checked out all the details on that page and you're interested in moving forward with velocity, click on the link that will take you towards the application. This is by application only. This is a community program and is for serious action takers only. So if you want to step up your game, if you have goals and dreams and aspirations for more, if you'd like to make a difference in the financial futures of the most important people in your life, I highly encourage you to check out the Raising Capital Academy. Click on that link and you'll be taken to the next step in the process to see if you qualify to take the next step forward for you. Hope to see you on the other side. Bye for now. Well, I sure hope you enjoyed that video. 2 simple things to do from here. If you're interested in continuing your journey, interested in continuing to become a successful real estate investor, just below where you're watching this, there will be an opportunity for you to subscribe. And if you're interested in continuing your journey, there is a hand-selected video over here for you. It's been hand-selected for you to keep your journey going forward. Thank you very much.